And I think JP, we're pretty much going to unpick some of your stuff tonight by the sound of it.
Yeah, no, I'm eager to get your insights. So we'll get going here. Alan, I just, you know, we kind of had that conversation, Alan, like about a month ago, honestly, when I was kind of getting going. I started texting you going, dang, this is hard. Like I was scratching my head as I'm trying to do, I've been out of it for 4 years, and I'm trying to first off implement new offensive stuff. But then I'm also like, geez, this is new for my players. And so like you try to go in, you try to have player led and use questions from like day one, but they don't know anything, right? They don't know any of the content. You haven't taught your offensive system. And that was just honestly probably the biggest misstep, or one of the biggest missteps I feel like I made early on. Was I was trying a little bit of this stuff too early on, and maybe pushing a little bit too much rather than just going, hey, I need to, download some stuff or upload some stuff into their minds here so that then we can start to work on, getting their opinion, getting their take, getting their perspective, getting them to be able to assess the situation and make some corrections. So that's kind of when I remember I reached out a month ago, and that's kind of what started this whole thing, right?
Yeah. It's I'm really enjoying your journey. I mean, my own is challenging enough, and I've got to get through that day to day. But actually, I'm enjoying your journey, JP, because like you said, you were out of it for 4 to 5 years. You've come back, you got back on the sideline, and it's interesting to hear the challenges that you're having, and sharing that journey is it's helping me actually, because now I get to watch what you do with a critical eye, a healthy eye, and think actually what could be better, but what's good as well inside in that stuff. So I think this is the exciting thing on the journey. And I know you've seen some of my clips and session plans and all that stuff. And it's always good to have somebody else's perspective. So us sharing here, I think it's a double-edged sword. We get to really put ourselves out there and be a bit vulnerable, but we also get value back, value added from each other so far. So yeah, let's get into it. What direction do you want to go with this right now? Do you want to upload a video? Do you want to give context? Do you want to where do you want to go with this right now?
Yeah, I think I'll give context, because I know I shared the videos with you earlier today, but I want to kind of lay out the context for each video. But I think I want to come back to this question that I posed to you, and I want us to unpack this a little bit real quick before we kind of get into the video, which is, we talked about a little bit like on the last session, which was moving from kind of this coach led to from telling to player led to using questions. And I remember texting you about, there's behaviors come before tech and tack, right? Like before they get into technical and tactical, like that's a big thing of Mark's, right? Is always have to have behaviors. And I'm going in here and going, just knowing and teaching a drill comes before even behaviors, because I can't ask my players to give great 100% intensity within this phase of practice when they're just learning a new drill, they're learning a new play, they're learning something new. And I don't know, you kind of had an interesting response to that. I don't know if you would agree with me after our conversation, or I'm just kind of curious your thoughts on that.
For me, there's no question. I think we're trying to take on an athlete-centered approach to coaching, a transformational style of coaching. But we've got to understand as well, I feel, that there's a strong element of telling. And there's an element of it's a sliding scale. Now, I'm not preaching gospel here, JP, but this is from my experience. And I think it's a logical order process as well, that, if you're putting new content in, or you've got a new player. So, for example, this year we've got like 9 out of the 12 again are new, or the seniors anyway. 5 of the 6 seniors are new. 5 of the 7 seniors are new. So I'm now spending time, we're like 6 weeks in. I'm still educating them in conversations, in dialogue about what the rule of 3 is, because that's a tool and an intervention I want us to use. Even as recent as Monday night, like we didn't practice Monday night, but we got on a Zoom call at like 6 p.m. for 45 minutes, just so I could go back over, re-embed the type of environment I want us to play in and perform in. And it was all to do with the behavioral stuff, like a logical order process, that behavior comes before tech. This is me reminding them again, like constantly having these conversations. We finished practice last night and I just put somebody on the spot. I said, oh, Sean, tell me what the rule of three is in your own words. And I'm going to put you on the clock here in 10 seconds just to give you an element of pressure. And I'm like, 1, 2. And he's giving me the rule of three in his own words. Now, he butchered it, but he's thinking about it. He's thinking about it. And for me, that's success at this stage, because this is all new. These concepts are new to him. Like me understanding him, his previous environment, the research I had to do during the summer is, how have you previously been coached? Because if I don't know how he's previously been coached, he turns up to our environment and I'm talking about, well, hey, Sean, tell me what you noticed there in those last 2 phases of play. Or, I'm expecting him to call and lead a player timeout in practice. It's just not realistic, and it's not fair. It's not fair, because I'm setting him up for failure. So there is an element, a strong element, and that's just with the behavioral stuff, JP, but you're talking about content within the practice. I'll spend 20 minutes tomorrow night talking about our ball screen defense, because we're still at the stage where it's learning. They're not ready to perform the type of ball screen defense I want us to perform. So I'm not going to have the expectation on them that they will be really, really intense and live with their communication of solving the problem of that. I've got to give them the tools to work with first.
And I think when you're doing the content, I know my team is really struggling with the focus during those sessions. And I think that's where you pushed me. It was like, well, one of the behaviors here is potentially like focus, or just being mentally locked in as you're taking that content. It may not be we're sprinting 100% or we're going but committed. That behavior is just focus. And we struggle with that. That's just, I wouldn't say even significant sideline chatter, but just players starting to eyes start to wander. They're not really taking it in. And so one thing that I did that was, I think, pretty helpful was we'd always start practice with circles, like get in small groups, and we call them our units now. Each of them's got a leadership council member on at the kind of that runs it. And we just talked about hey, one of the questions we gave him one day was, what's an obstacle to you being focused in the session? And then how can your teammates help you in those moments? And it was good. It was good, I think, because the big thing you're trying to drive at is getting permissions, right? Like permission to hey, if your eyes are wandering, or you're trying to have a side chat here, or I just see you struggling, I can try to help bring you back in. And I think we got some of those permissions. I'm not sure how much that actually led to actual interventions where players calling someone together there. But I do think when we started to lose the focus, I was able to bring them back in a little bit quicker. But just trying some of that stuff, trying to, implement some kind of those theories or behind the rule of three and within those moments too,
So let's stay on focus for a little bit, because I've got a question for you. If and we all experience it, if we dig deep enough, it's inside every practice. Somebody's not focused in every practice at some point in time, even the most intense, flourishing teams. But how are you going to, or what's your plan to sustain it? So you've got them in the circle time, you've got them at the start, you've got them believing or understanding interdependent kind of support system where they have to support each other. But how are you going to keep it alive? Because we're going to have these moments again where they come in and they're unfocused for different reasons.
I think that's where I'm really trying to drive at when we get back, is trying to find ways to get reps to where they can, actually bring each other back in on that. And I can actually try to go to, for instance, if I see one player, one of my younger players kind of struggling, I don't actually necessarily go to that player, but I might go to their leader, their unit, and be like, hey, I'm thinking Glebe is really struggling right now, can you step in, So I think that's the next step for me. I don't know. I mean, would you agree on that? I just feel like that's, having to give them that nudge, I would say that's a big component of it, because right now I feel like I'd have to do that, or I'd have to call hey, timeout, you guys get together and you guys talk about how you want to, move through this next phase of practice. Still, once again, and the video I'm about to show, it's all really me driving those moments, those interventions,
Well, I think you used a very important word there, nudging. Like you have to, because remember, they're in learning. They're still learning how to be self-sufficient. They're still learning how to self-manage. They're still learning how to take responsibility for somebody else, for the team, how to take
Mhm.
responsibility for themselves. So our expectations can't be that, like, right, I'm going to give them this tool, I'm going to give them this intervention, and they're going to use it. They're going to use it. It's like giving homework to a kid and expect them to do it. I mean, there has to be a reason that they will buy into that. I see value in using this tool, or I feel fearful if we don't use this tool. Like there's a bit of I'm not saying I'm not advocating we go in that direction, because it defeats the
Mhm.
purpose of this way of coaching that we want to get better at. But your leader, like, you've got your leadership council and you've got that leadership group. What if they're not? Um, what if they're not focused? Who support? Like, this is what I'm trying to get to. Like, and I don't necessarily have the solution. That's why I'm taking some notes as we talk, because I can relate to all this stuff really, and I have the same problems. But if that leadership group is not focused, what's your game plan for that one?
We're so uncomfortable already, like doing the interventions, though, man. Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we're so uncomfortable that we're just you can just, and they even articulate it. They've said this in the whole team sessions, like, we're just worried about how she's going to take that, and crossing that barrier is hard. I mean, I guess for me, my initial thought, my answer to that is, I don't know if I've done this successfully, is, well, if they're looking after some of the other players, I should be looking after them, or they should be looking after each other. So you could go to another one of the leaders and say, hey, you know, she's really struggling there. So I think that's one way, is just trying to find someone that they're comfortable with at the earlier on, more comfortable with. I think trying to get an 18-year-old that's never played at this level, on the senior level before, to
Mm.
give to help a 29-year-old who was her coach for many years, to have an 18-year-old say that to 29-year-old, it's not realistic at this stage.
Yeah.
So I have to go to people that are, a similar age or experience, or it has to be me early on, I guess.
Mm. Mm. I think, like, what's interesting for me is I haven't seen the practices, and I've seen some of the videos that we're going to watch a little bit later. It's interesting from I'm thinking now, and because we have such a good relationship, I'm just going to come right out with it and feel safe that this will land the way I intended to. I'm wondering, what's your baseline with being able to sell the value of this to the players, that they buy it from you, for the want of a different way to describe it. But are they seeing, because if they're not engaged, no, they can get it wrong. From my experience, they can get it wrong and they can lose focus and they can be disengaged. But if they have seen value in it, it should be easy to realign them. It should be easy to bring them back on track, to be more engaged, to be more focused. And very often it could only take one trigger word. But I'm talking like, JP, this is 6 months with your team. From my experience, it took me 6 months. We're not with all of them. For some of them to get to that level where I would say to them, hey, AJ, remind me of the bigger picture here. Because the bigger picture was him becoming a better decision maker and a better leader for his future, not for the here and now. Like, I got him to a point where he understood, through a lot of one-to-one interactions off the court, actually, where he understood the things we were trying to do on the court was to not just to help the team, but to help him get a bigger contract, play in a bigger league next year or the year after, and develop that skill set of being a leader when he walks in the gym. Doesn't matter what gym he walks into or what team he goes to. With him being like a better decision maker on the court, because the way I sell this to these guys who are trying to go on a journey of being at a higher level, being a better player, or just your goal is to be a better team, is you've got to improve your decision making. And how can we improve your decision making if I keep making all the decisions for you guys? If I keep calling the timeouts in practice, if I
Mm-hmm.
keep telling you the things you're getting wrong instead of you figuring out yourself, I'm stealing reps from you that you need, like really valuable reps to problem solve, to scan, to have a critical eye, and then to collaborate with each other, to work together to deliver the solution. So for me, I think there's a sales pitch, but a healthy one, because the motive is clean. It's to help them to be a better decision maker. And that can be difficult because we talked about this last week. When the going gets tough, the player just wants you to give them the answer. And this is where, for me, JP, the sliding scale is really important. We have to make a judgment as coaches. Yeah, I should give him the answer or her the answer right now because that's what they need, because they're really struggling. And if I let them struggle much longer, they might go over the edge into losing confidence, anxiety, frustration, disengagement, anger with their teammates, confrontation with their teammates. So, I mean, it's the player, I guess, and the team, but it's back to, do they see the value in the stuff you're trying to do?
Yeah. And I think that's where I have focused so much on the what, and I have not spent any time on the why, and the kind of, and I think you keep bringing me back to that. And that's something like we're going to dive into next week on a Zoom call as a team, is why am I taking this approach with you all? Why are we not doing this the way that it's been done for you so much in the past? I've had little moments of that, but I think we really need to have a really much deeper conversation. And it doesn't necessarily always happen as a team. I've started to set up some one-on-ones with my players to start to unpack, this. And at my leadership council meeting on Monday, same thing. I kind of tried to start pushing some of this stuff and trying to, like you said, sell it. Let's get into some of this film though, because I think this is where you'll start to see. And I think if they understand the why, I think we might have better success on it too, because I think sometimes you can see from body language, they're like, well, why are we doing it this way? Why don't you just tell me what to do here? You want to jump into some film?
Let's jump into some film right away. But something came to mind just as you were saying that you're going to be getting on a Zoom with your team again to go through this stuff and actually talk about the why more than the what with them. You know what I think worked for me down through the years? Having Mark Bennett in the practices, because it wasn't, Mark was selling the why more than I was. And I look back on it, and I haven't thought of this before. You've triggered this thought with me right now. Does somebody else coming in selling the why help you to to help you unlock them seeing the value in this stuff? I don't know, but as I think back now, I mean, Mark's very versed in this really well, has a lot of experience, so pitches it in a way that people listen. But it definitely helped me to get across the why to our guys if you go back 4 or 5 years when he came in there. Anyway, let's chop it up with the video.
Did you just sign up to speak to my team next week? Is that what you said?
No, I signed up everybody else on this call. No, but I think it's something to consider. Not necessarily me, but like, I don't know, Nate even, or somebody who's removed. You never know, because sometimes when somebody's removed from the environment, it's easier to listen. Sometimes I think it's a different voice, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think that's why people like bringing me in, to work with the team, to lay out some of this stuff here. I think it helps. For some reason, I can't see you guys, but
no, you're good. We can see you, buddy.
Good. Okay. Well, I'm just going to show this clip here. So this is a challenge just to set the stage here. We struggle with one-on-one. Like, we don't want to compete. We don't want to put our hand up when someone wins, because some of our players are feeling, oh, if I put my hand up, I'm going to make the girl feel bad next to me that I beat her. Like, I'm like, I'm charting winners and losers in our practice. And I'm like, hey, who got the win? Who got the win? I'm looking up there, and they're like, So we struggle to compete, and that's something we've been working on. So here you can see in the one-on-one, you just watch the players. I mean, we're not competing in this segment of practice. So I try to step in at this stage. This is probably 15 to 16 practices in. I try to step in and try to raise the level of competition here by getting them to just be a little bit more clear and set some success criteria for what competing looks like.
Freeze! Everybody come here real quick. Circle up right here. She gonna win? I want you to think real quick. What does competing look like in one-on-one? Just think about it for a second. What does competing in this drill look like? If you walked in here and you said, damn, that is the most competitive group of players I've ever seen, what would that look like? Give me something. Intensity? What does intensity look like to you?
Like 100% offensively and defensively.
Okay. All right, so they're just giving 100%. Anything else we want to add?
Quick change between games.
Quick change between games. Quick change, right? Everybody in agreement on that? And they're giving 100% within it, and we're having quick changes. I think those are two really good points. Quickly reflect on you right now. Are you giving 100%, first off? And secondly, how quickly are you changing between those games? Right? We got some groups I think we're competing and some groups that aren't competing. Let's go.
What do you think, Alan?
Hey, I'm going to be such a coach right now and ask you, what do you think?
Well, honestly, I thought when it came to getting the effect of raising, I was really happy when this session, as far as like we did start to compete in our and Alva, who said, quick transitions, she nailed it. Like there were some groups that were just kind of walking in between it. And so I felt really good in one sense, just as far as them kind of identifying things. I thought, at least in that transitions, intensity, I don't like intensity because I'm like, what does that look like? And then 100%, I'm not sure that's really tangible enough. I like to get a little bit more specific in my success criteria, but I'm not sure if that is accurate as well too. Like I maybe 100% is good enough, So that's just kind of my initial thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful clip. A couple of things that came to mind with me here, just right off the bat, and again, it's with a little bit of context here, isn't it? Because I've not seen it from the start to the finish, but you're charting wins and losses, right? Mm-hmm. But if I say to you, and you asked one girl when she came in, you said, did she win? But if I say to you, where do you want their main focus to be? Then is winning and losing stunting that focus? It may or may not be. It's just a question. Mm-hmm. If that's the first thing we ask them, then does that take away from the focus of you wanting them to be intentional in the moment? Because we're putting a premium on the win. And what does competition look like? Competing. One said intensity, one said quick changes, like no lags, but yet they walked into you very slow. So straight away, girls, don't tell me what quick changes are, because you just demonstrated it. So the next time we come into a huddle, like what does a quick change what does a quick change look like? Then I need to see it. Don't tell me, show me, because you're right, girls, you give me great answers. You know the answers to the problem. Why are we getting to the point where I'm calling a timeout and you're telling me that we need to be more intense? We need quicker changes. So you know the solution, but that didn't filter around the group. Somebody gave you the answer. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's like putting it back on them, that it's not your responsibility, it's their responsibility. But how can we package it or shape it in a way that they feel like, yeah, that is my responsibility. It's not your responsibility for that stuff, for the intensity, quick changes. I mean, what I'm effectively saying is, I don't think you need to bring them in for that. I think we should be trying to think about how can you get them to be more intense and to have less lag time, so quick changeovers, without stopping that whole practice and bringing them in, just for those two bits of information. Like, I think we should talk about how can you do that while they're still going and turn the tempo up, or get them to turn the tempo up without stopping them. What you think?
So if that type of intervention, would that be what would that look like for you as far as that to bring that out? Because you're scanning, you're saying, man, we're really our transitions are slow, which I totally agreed with her on that. And there's not that you don't want your players smiling and having fun, but they didn't look like they were really going at each other in that segment, which you really want to see them going at each other. So how would you have addressed that then?
Well, there's two things coming to mind right now. I don't know how you started the drill, but before we started the drill, I would ask them, tell me in 5 seconds, right now we're into this 1v1 breakdown drill. What would be unacceptable right now? Just give me 2 things, but I need them in 5 seconds, guys. Because I don't want to have a 10-minute conversation with them before the drill. If they don't tell me in those 5 to 10 seconds, hey, we've got to be intense, we've got to be focused, we've got to have quick changeovers. If that's the most important thing for me and they don't give it to me in that first 10 seconds, I'm just telling them, guys, this is what would be unacceptable right now. If we're not intense, if we're not fully focused, if there's not quick changeovers, are you guys clear on that? Everybody got it? Okay, it's the question we shouldn't be asking. Does everybody understand? But does everybody understand that these are the 2 things we're looking for? Yes, coach, we got it. Right, go and show me. Boom. And once they're out there, there's 2 things I would do then. I would be moving around, JP, in those moments, saying, to one of the players, Deirdre, do I need to stop the practice right? Do I need to stop this drill right now, or can you guys solve the problem live? Because right now we're going into unacceptable. Mary, I've moved down to your group. Mary, I'm about 5 seconds away from stopping this, or 30 seconds away from stopping this, and we're going to waste time. Unless you guys can change what needs to change right now, can you do it? Yes, coach, we got it. All right, go ahead and show me then. But you got to show me immediately. We can't warm up to it. You got to be on it right now. Yes, we got it. And these are the people at the back of the line or whoever's just rotating to go in. I would put it on the players to vocalize it to the whole gym, as opposed to bringing the whole gym together and me vocalizing it to them or me trying to get it out of them.
I like that.
Because I think, in a practice, how many times do you really want to bring the group together? Because in a game, we can only do it how many times? 6 times, 8 times, 10 times in the whole game, like timeouts, for example. There's 100 and whatever possessions in the game, 170 possessions in the game. Really, there's only 14 times we can talk to the group. Timeouts, I take 5, opposition takes 5, that's 10. Between quarter breaks, there's 3 periods. Pre-game, there's 1. So that's 14 times we can interact with our group in 170 possessions, both teams. So we've got to become very good with those moments that we bring them together. Otherwise, just don't bring them together. There's got to be value. But I wouldn't stop the practice for that. I would find another way. I would get I definitely wouldn't be my voice. I would be covertly planting a seed with other players for them to make sure that this message gets around the gym. So that's how I would have done it, really.
No, I think that's fantastic. And I think that is just a glaring. I'm constantly trying to, all right, hold on, we're going to come in here and correct, and getting them, like you said, can you raise the level? What would you say if she was like, yes, I think you do need to bring this in? Would you bring it in?
Well, if she said to me, coach, I think we need to bring it in, I would say.
Yeah, because you said the question is like, hey, do I need to stop this practice, or can you change what needs to be changed right now? And she's like, coach, I think you need to call, because I feel like that's what they really want right now. Is they want to call timeouts, and then they want to have a 3-minute conversation. I love your bits about, hey, we got to be quick, and if they're not quick, then you just got to give it to them. You 30, even just last session, 30 seconds, getting them to be quick on it. That's gotta be reps. But how would you respond if she's like, yeah, let's bring it in?
I would say to her, before I do that, we can do that, but before I do that, remind me of the success criteria. What did we define as success for this segment of practice? If she tells you what it is, say, you don't need me to bring you that in. You don't need me. You got this. And if she can't do it, I'll get somebody else to do it. But if I feel confident that they don't need me to know what the problem is here, to know what the success criteria, and it goes back to, were you clear at the start of that segment of practice what success looks like for this group and what would be unacceptable for this group? And again, this is the challenge I have all the time, JP. Like, am I giving them too many things to focus on at once? And actually, they're all very different. So some people can focus on more than others. So do I have to accept that actually that player is not going to be able to deliver those three things? So I'm just going to accept the two that she can deliver. So it's knowing the group. But if she gives me the success criteria, I'm saying, you got this. You don't need me for this. And then if she's not confident to do it, which will be the other barrier you'll face, I'm going to find somebody who is confident to do it. Now, if the message is coming back to me, I don't know, coach, the success criteria is one-on-one defense. I've got to then go, well, this is great data for me because they're telling me actually how ineffective I was at starting this drill in the direction I wanted it to go, because they're talking about defense, but actually I planned for us to work on one-on-one offense, and that was the focus, for it to be intense and for the changeovers to be quick. So they're giving you great data. If they give you the wrong information, now I would bring them together and I would say, sorry, guys, this is on me. This is my bad. I didn't give you the right enough information at the start of this drill. Here's the three things I want you to deliver right now, A, B, and C. I'll be clear on the next one. Off we go. Show me.
When you've got like 4 different games going on, like say in this section of practice, you know, if let's say I go over here to, you know, one of the players in the corner, if I go to one of the players in the corner, I'm like, yeah, you know, should I expect that player to be able to communicate? Like, is that a reasonable expectation to challenge your player? Like to, hey, you know, get everybody else transition? Sure. Should you just really focus on those individual groups, you think?
I think individual groups. I would move around and I would snipe people. Like in my practice as JP, you'll never see me standing on the one spot. Like I'm at the baseline, sideline, I'm moving around. And I know there's plenty of coaches out there will say, like, you know, when you're scanning and you're sniping the players, like be on the side, be at the halfway, or people can advocate different places for different reasons, watching the defense, be on the baseline or whatever. But for me, I'm moving. I'm in there, I'm out of there. I'm not getting in their way, but I'm moving all the time. And I'm trying to snipe every player, like within a 20-minute segment. I'm trying to get something out of everybody within 20 minutes, you know, and even live during play. Like, you know, I'll throw a question out there during play. Simple question. I mean, we talk about it all the time. What's next? JP, what's next? You know, we're rotating on defense. JP, what's next? Just to sharpen your focus. But also, and I don't want to go too deep with this, I think that can hinder them as well, because now they miss the opportunity to be alert and learn from what's going on in front of them, whereas I'm giving them a crutch to tell them to focus instead of the game forcing them to focus. I don't want to go in that direction. It's a deeper topic.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into this next one. This is a really short one. It's about a minute here. And this was, you know, context. We're down a bunch of players due to, you know, COVID stuff. Plus, we just had our first game canceled. This is the day before we're going to get a 6-week, you know, break period. So motivation's really, really low. We're just doing a quick warm up here, and it's called our quick set. So they've set the success criteria. I've set the success criteria. Been really clear on that as far as peeking to the rim. Like every time they catch the ball, they need to be looking towards the rim. And if one player doesn't look towards the rim, I call reset. And it goes back up to a minute, and we just keep resetting and resetting. Well, we end up having like 4 resets because players aren't looking the rim, and also nobody's really giving what we call ERN, which is encouragement, reminders, or notifications. Like nobody's saying, hey, you know, Shauna, you didn't look to the rim. Nobody's saying, hey, Quiva, hey, look to the rim, look to the rim. Nobody's giving reminders. Nobody's notifying someone when they don't. So this is where I step in here.
Hold right here. Come here. Who's looked to the rim every time? We're struggling, right? That's why we've had 4 resets there. What do we need to do to help each other on that? Who's giving a reminder here to look to the rim? All right, let's clean up. Let's go.
Now, the thing is, this group that's on the near side of the basket, they're the reason we've had a reset 4 times. And I just move on from it, which is a mistake by me. I know that as a coach. We're all over the place. I mean, and there's, I would say what's going through my head here, because I know you're going to already ask my thoughts first, so I'll go ahead and share them anyways, Alan. personally, I'm actually am in a headspace, and I think a lot of coaches that, if they end up watching this, I think they'll resonate with this. My players are mentally fragile right now. This practice, like their season is up in the air, like, and the motivation's very down, and I'm worried about pushing them too hard early on here. I tried to get on them from the beginning here, so I'm a little worried about that. So I just kind of just end up saying, all right, screw this, we're moving on to the next thing here. Nobody gives any reminders. Nobody gives any notifications. They did see the rim though. They were just slow. They're jogging. So I'm overall not super happy about it. I think after our previous conversation on the previous video, I would just say, rather than calling the whole team together, I should have come over here on the third reset and maybe spoke to this player or this player who are leaders in the group and go, hey, because they're the ones that really need the nudge. They're the ones that need the nudge because they're the leaders here in this group here. And they're going to be the ones that are going to be most likely to get vocal and get on these other players here about that. So I don't know. That's just kind of my initial takeaways.
Yeah, I think you've pretty much nailed what I would have said about the first part, like, doing it live, problem solving live again. But what keeps coming back to me in both clips here, JP, and I just scrolled down a few notes as I was watching it, like your success criteria for each segment of practice is very much a technical, tactical element, which is fine, right? So peeking at the rim, get a piece of the paint, that type of stuff, I would imagine on that drill. So, but like you're also described there, you're getting a little bit frustrated with the fact that they're not reminding, you call it ERN. So reminder, what was the E in the N again?
E is encouragement.
Yeah.
Encourage, so it's just remind. Like, clapping up, stuff like that. And then remind before the play, notifications, letting them know hey, but we always say notifications, non-judgmental way, just an observation. Hey, I noticed you did not look at the rim that way, essentially like that.
Yeah. So it may be something or nothing, but I'm thinking there needs to be a disparity between the success criteria of the drill and then what we call, and I got from Mark, is your non-negotiables. And the non-negotiable stuff is generally the behavior stuff. So your success criteria, because you want to build a style of play, the success criteria for me inside in the drill is very much the tech-tac. But that sits, what sits under all of that every single time is the non-negotiables. So for us, it was like effective comms, communication. I had to educate them about that, obviously. And we talk a lot about what that is and what it looks like. And it's opening up a can of worms of emotional intelligence. What was the other one? Effective scanning and effective comms, because they go together. Commit to the choice you make, and then positive touches, regardless of outcome. We fist bump, we touch it up, and we accept it. It was whether good or bad. So I'm watching these two clips and the things we're talking about. I'm wondering, does there need to be clarity with the players about what you're finding unacceptable from them? Because instead of going along the lines of you're not focused, you didn't commit, there was no encouragement, reminder, notifications, is that to become one of your non-negotiables? So you just say, girls, hey, keep going, don't stop. But on a scale of 0 to 10 right now, how are we looking with our non-negotiables? If somebody's got to shout, so come on, somebody hit me with one number. Come on, let's go. All right, someone tells you it's 4. Okay, I'm not going to stop the drill, but can you take that 4 to an 8 in the next few reps? That's your only focus right now. Because if the behavioral stuff is not on point, then the tech-tac stuff is always going to be cosmetic. And I think that's like looking at those two clips now, and by gosh, I could show you clips of our practice around having the same issues. I always look at the practice the next day. I always watch the practice back the next day. So this morning's practice, like, again, I could see moments where I've let them off the hook with the behavioral stuff. And because I've let them off the hook with the behavior stuff, the tech-tac has been poor. But what we'll do as coaches, like my assistant coaches and I, after the practice, will say, man, we're doing a really, like last night we spoke about, we're doing a really bad job of getting to the point of the ball screen and not arriving alone. I'm not talking about the screener, I'm talking about the on-ball player, the ball handler. We want them to look to reject it all the time or sell opposite. So you get to the point of the screen where there's like a meter, at least, separation between you and the on-ball defensive player. And we talked loads about, like, last night after practice, oh, we got to get better at that. We got to do it again on Thursday. I watched the practice this morning, and all I could see was our lack of commitment to actually refuse the ball screen, which is a behavior thing, you know? So our non-negotiables, remember I said to you, one of our non-negotiables is commitment. Commit to the choice you make in the present moment. It doesn't matter the outcome. There's only one wrong here. And the wrong is that you don't commit. The outcome not being what we wanted is not a definition of failure. It's not a definition of a mistake in our environment. The only mistake is not committing. But because I'm a coach and I put my coach's hat on, and I want us to get better at ball screen offense, I overlooked the behavioral stuff last night till I watched it back on the video this morning. So I'm looking at your clips and I'm listening to what we're talking about, and it's swirled around my head. Does there need to be more disparity between the non-negotiable, what I call non-negotiables, through Mark, thankfully, and your success criteria? Does there need to be a disparity there so you don't have to keep stopping the drill for behavior stuff? But if you need to stop the drill, like, I think it wouldn't it be ideal if the only time we stopped the drills and the activities was because the tech tack wasn't what they thought it was, and we have to reteach them, actually, no, we want to do it this way. So I think if you get to the point where you're trying to keep the drill alive and not stop it because of behavior, maybe the session flows a bit better. I don't know. Yeah. What's your thoughts on that? Because you know the team better than I do. What do you think that's something that they could righten that ship with?
Well, I mean, I think that's a big thing is cleaning up my non-negotiables, which are, you know, I always come at non-negotiables a little different than Mark or yourself. Mine are always, you know, there's player standards that we lay out, and then there's non-negotiables, and then you get your success criteria. And I think for a drill, you know, and getting a little bit more technical on this. And I think that's where I've struggled, because I want to have a technical success criteria, but I also wanted to have one that was a behavior. So you end up giving two. So, and I don't know if I can look at my practice plan and say, hey, you know, I gave this one for that drill there, but was it, you know, it might have been like sprint. It didn't look like they were sprinting, so it probably wasn't that, you know, but I mean, I definitely let them off the hook. I just think from what you're saying there, I got to clean up some of those non-negotiables for me, which are like, you know, being on time, listening. I want to be more like focused. And then I think ERN, our standard of support, needs to be a non-negotiable, really, honestly, that you're doing one of those three. Like, I think we always talk about a progression, like everyone can encourage, like everyone can at least do that. It takes a little bit more vulnerability, it takes a little bit more courage to sometimes lean in with older players, remind them, or give people notifications. But we've also talked about, you know, acknowledging that with a thumbs up, you know, during COVID rather than the fist bump. So, I mean, I think I always liked your definition of commitment, but I agree that I probably have got a little bit too much stuff going on in some of these things here, not enough clarity that we got to get the behaviors right first.
There's an element as well. Maybe you just need to be more patient. You know, these girls are 5 weeks in. I don't know when that practice took place, maybe 4 weeks in, 5 weeks in. And, you know, they're getting used to you. You're getting used to them. You're still trying to figure out who they are, you know, and maybe what they've always done. Like, that's the other thing, that the mistake I make. I don't make that mistake anymore, but I did for years. When I'm getting new players, like overseas guys, I don't know how they've been coached before, really. You know, I can speak to their coach, I can speak to the player, but you really don't know how they're used to being coached. And I think when we lose sight of the fact that they may have been coached very differently to how you're coaching them, now what fills their headspace is sometimes confusion. Like, what does the coach want from me? You know, he's not saying anything, or he's asking me a lot of questions. And is he asking me questions because I'm doing it wrong? And I think we have to be very transparent about how we're going to coach them and what hat we're going to wear when we coach them, for them to be more comfortable with the interventions you're going to put in, with the tools you're going to use. You know, what does ERN really mean and look like and feel like? What does it look, sound, and feel like when we don't do it? Like, the transparency of all that stuff. And we're back to, for me personally, I think, JP, we're back to those everyday conversations with them about what really carries value, about who we really want to be. You know, it's not next ball screen defense. It's not jump switching in the 3/4 court. Like, who do we really want to be? What do we value most? And what are we trying to build? Like, that conversation has got to stay alive all the time, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm showing some of our worst moments, obviously, too. You know, that's where I'm having to step in. I mean, they're a really hardworking bunch. I mean, they really are. It's just when we see these dips, and they know it themselves, we see the dips in practice. And that's what they talked about on Monday with my leadership council. Is just like, what we need to do to become elite is to be able to maintain focus for 2 hours. You know, the whole session, really not have steps and stuff where you have to constantly keep stepping in or we, and that's for me, I think is doing some of these live interventions here. That would be definitely helpful. Do you want me to show one more clip here of some of our timeouts? You want me to do that?
Yeah.
So there was one where I'm going to do the one thing to do better because I feel like this will work here. Oops, sorry, let me share my screen here. We're just kind of getting up and down the court. We're scrimmaging here, and I'm not even sure which drill we were doing. My computer's freezing up here. Sorry, but yeah, we'll just run it here, and we'll go from there.
Hold. Take time out with your team. If you could do one thing to clean it up, because we all know this is sloppy as hell. If you could do one thing to clean it up, figure it out right now. But you got to do it quickly. You got to communicate this quickly. You only got 30 seconds.
It took me 15 seconds to say that bit, so I got to clean that up.
30 seconds.
I would just say that's 30 seconds right now. And here, and this is the thing too, we're doing this water deal. I got to clean this stuff up here. We just spend
blue.
30 seconds. We're all over the place.
Well, all right. Both teams, let's go. Come here. What'd you guys have?
We just need to, I think we're getting tired, so we just need to finish easy shots, easy layups.
What'd you guys have? Okay. I think spacing too. I think we're putting all three offensive players are inside the 3-point line, which is putting 5 heartbeats inside the 3-point line. Okay? So just if we could just get out and space better, I think we'll have a better chance at some of the passes here. Let's go.
You want me to go for it?
Yeah, you go for it. Lay it into me, man.
Yeah, you got to get off that Irish stopwatch time, by the way. Them seconds went quick. I think in that timeout, like, you asked them to take a timeout, which means that they should be having a conversation about why you asked them to have a timeout and then start problem solving. Just get into a problem solving situation. But yet you told them what the problem was. So at the start of it, you like, right, timeout, both teams. You got to tie this up. It's really sloppy.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's a minuscule thing, JP, but if we expanded that, it means that we're telling them what the problem is instead of letting them solve it. We're filtering a little bit, and they can tell from and the other thing as well, if they're new with this stuff, like, filtering there probably makes them feel more anxious. And now they don't want to play this system anymore. We don't like these timeouts. Don't give them to us anymore because, you're telling us you're telling us it's sloppy, and they're not comfortable, I think, to hear the word sloppy yet from you. I don't know, but that's my gut feeling based on the previous timeouts. You said they're a difficult group in terms of taking on the process. But your positioning, I found interesting. Like, one girl came over to you. You were in the middle, and they went off and had their timeouts pretty much. But I didn't like what I would like to have seen you do there was like go to one team and just listen. What are you hearing? All right, maybe stay with that team because it's 30 seconds. like just sacrifice the other team right now and just stay with that team and hear what they're saying. The next time I'll go with the other team, because then you're gathering data about what they're talking about. When you have that data, now you can scan more effectively, or you can actually realign them in the timeout, which is really important, because if the success criteria of that segment of practice was defense, and in their timeouts they're talking about offense, then they're not putting their focus on the one thing you want them to focus mostly on in terms of improvement. So when you go over and you listen, you stand next to the timeout and you're listening, you're getting your data for what they're talking about. So you do one of two things. You realign them. Girls, remind me what criteria success was. Success is now for these 20 minutes. Oh, it's defense. Okay, stay on that topic. Continue. You got 15 seconds left. Or you hear them talking about the success criteria and they're telling you what adaptation, what change they're going to make. Or, just as importantly, they'll tell you what they're doing really well. And now you can stand back and scan better to see if they are making those adaptations, if they are making those adjustments. If they're not, after a period of time, you're into you going in there, helping them to solve the problem, teaching them, because they're in learning. They're not able to solve the problem. So your positioning was interesting. And then you call them in to say, right, tell me what you guys are going to do. Tell me what you're going to do. Whereas you would have got that data anyway if you just went over and eavesdropped on their timeouts and then just let them go again. Less time standing around, really.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one more timeout. I could pull that up and share that real quick if you want me to, or we could.
Let's do it. The more, the better. And if Scott is nodding his head for more timeouts, then we're going to give Scott more timeouts.
All right. You see the screen, right?
Yeah, you're good.
I'm pretty sure this is the right one here.
Foul! 2 shots, 60-second timeout, quickly. Here we go. We're happy with big advantage. We're happy with communication. Okay, yeah. Other than that, though, so we've done those things. So what's next? What's next to get better? Yeah, what's next to get better, we think, based upon what we saw, Kiana?
Probably, spacing on offense and just making sure the sprint cuts and not slow up on the last part of the cut.
Okay, because we have some people that we're just kind of, I know we've been out of it for a week. You can see it, right? Yeah. We're just not running. We're not running our cuts. Let's go. How many are?
I think you should.
Are you guys ready? Yeah. What did we come up with? How was the perfect catch?
We didn't feel like we were just second guessing ourselves. We need to drive confidently.
You didn't feel like what?
We didn't get into it. We only had one.
I don't know why I cut it there, but we were definitely at that minute I had given them. I don't know, I feel a little bit better about this, but one thing I would say that made this better was I told them before the game that I was going to call timeouts at some stage there, and that they needed to be. So I kind of set the stage that they knew it was coming, whereas in the previous one it was just kind of a random one. But back to your point too, I didn't say, oh, it's sloppy or this or that. They knew the success criteria. They were reviewing those things, which in the first group I was like, okay, they felt like they nailed them. So I'm like, okay, what's next for you? You know, like what's the next thing you can do to take it up there? So overall, I mean, I feel a little bit better, but I definitely would want to get some feedback on how I could make it even better.
Do you know what's really jumped out? Like you showed about 4 or 5 videos, right? I think this one was really good, but the context is they are clear. I'm not sure in some of the previous ones, they had clarity about what you expected from them, because they sounded very engaged in this timeout. So you can only be engaged when you know what the focus is, if you're completely clear on what the outcome needs to be or what you need to be moving towards. I would finish it with a bit more of a, I use show me. I'll say, great, okay, that's what you're planning for, great, now show me. So we're binding into a contract. Actually, they're not just talking, you're saying, okay, and walking away. He's going, all right, great, okay, good job, good plan, but now I need to see it. But now you got to show me. When we go back in the court, I need to see this. So it's actually, we're not just having these timeouts for the sake of having timeouts. You got to validate it to me with action. You got to, it's great to talk about this stuff, but now they have to be in a, almost bind into a verbal contract with you that we're going to show this to you. So I want you to show it to me. And the other thing is, really good stuff, JP. I thought that timeout was really good. You're using questions, they're engaged. You move them on with questioning. I thought it was really good. The only question I have for you is, why are you calling the timeout?
I think on that one, I kind of built that up. We've gotten a couple where players have called timeouts before. But I think it'd be even better that you say that now, to say, hey, you each have one timeout in this 8-minute segment. You can use it whenever you want. That way one group has an intention that they're focusing to fix something, and the other group comes in, they can be say, hey, we just went on a 10-0 run. They could be, coming in positive, but which is more game like, right? So I think that's a great suggestion.
I think I'm thinking about it now with two answers in my head as I answer my own question. And it sounds incredibly egotistical, but like, if I was to answer that, I'm thinking, right, they're at the really beginner stage where they need to know with the time score situation. Maybe you're teaching them when is an effective time to call a timeout. It could be like that with a junior team, for example, until they're ready to start identifying that stuff themselves. Or they're not ready, number one, or you call the timeout because they're not delivering what you wanted them to deliver, which means then, if we're being athlete-centered about it, you would say to them, right, girls, I called the timeout. Does anybody know why I called this timeout? Mm-hmm. So again, they're having to think for themselves. They're having to be cognitive about it. But I think this team will start to show progress, and I think it's your data capture when they start calling timeouts based on what you define as success in this session, and that's the stuff they're talking about. But
because they're not meeting that what we defined as success right there.
Yeah,
Or
I think we gotta be careful. Maybe they're trying to meet it. They're just not at the stage yet where they can deliver that. And I think that comes back to us being patient as coaches, really, and that's the biggest challenge. We talked about putting in too much content, but it's also they're ready when they're ready. We can't really force them to be somewhere they're not yet. And Vlad Draskovic, got to give him a shout out. One of the best mentors I've ever had, Serbian basketball coach. He said to me one time, he said, Alan, are you coaching them when I was with the national team under 16? Are you coaching them? Are you asking them to do what you want them to do, or are you asking them to do what they're capable to do? And I think we've got to be very clean with our thoughts about what they're capable to do, because those expectations and putting them in those situations sets them up for failure, which leads to frustration and lack of confidence, especially with this group you have now that you said is quite new on the journey with you. I think that's a really, really important area to be mindful of.
Yeah, and I think, just that brings me to awareness too of, I have certain players that technically and tactically are light years ahead of some others. It's some players that just have not gotten it tactically what we're trying to do from our style of play. And then we've got a handful that have just totally got it. They've got it. They've got the skill set to do that, and even just some of that mentality of that competitive mentality, like I just have to be patient. And I'm trying to be patient on that, just like them developing that. So no, this has been really good. I gotten so much out of this, man. And, been really, really helpful. I mean, just something, and I've been doing some other stuff. And I think one of my probably biggest frustrations right now is, gosh, I just wish I had this stuff, 12 years ago when I'm sitting in Limerick and I'm coaching 3 practices a day. Right now, I don't have practices for the next 6 weeks. I'm like, I want reps at this, there's not, like, you just, like, some of the stuff that you're saying, like, I was getting some serious reps when I was coaching in Limerick back in the day. Even then, when I was coaching in Tennessee, you're practicing, you're doing this and this. Now you just, it's tough to get the reps, but it was really good, man.
All righty. We've been going for an hour, almost an hour and a half.
Yeah, almost. Yeah. Appreciate everybody.
Yeah. All right. Well, JP, just a shout out to you, buddy, for showing these videos, for putting yourself out there. I think it's wonderful, mate. And I think what you've done tonight is a real shining light for all coaches, because I don't care what level you're at, we're all having similar problems, just on different levels, and there's no hiding from it. And tonight you showed your willingness to be vulnerable. Whether you felt vulnerable or not, I don't know, but that would be a perception. But great job, buddy. And I guess I'm up next then, huh? I guess the next time we come to the table, I better have some video ready, you know?
I know. Yeah, we'll do that. I think we're on for Sunday, right?
Sunday, buddy. Sunday again.
Sunday evening. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's tough. It's definitely always tough getting in there. You're right. There is a bit of vulnerability, especially when you're not pulling out your highlights. You're trying to bring out the areas that you really want to grow in. You know, I think those are there's been a lot of good that we've done, but so no, I appreciate all the feedback, Alan, and I appreciate the other guys chiming in and stuff like that. It's just been great. If you want to continue to be a part of the conversation, with us, you're going to get an email with a link where you can kind of let us know, and we'll kind of give you some details on how to kind of continue to join these sessions, and we'll give you the notes afterwards. Alan put those together and stuff like that. Alan, you got anything else on that?
No, just the only thing I'd finish with is say these things you call lowlights are your real highlights. They're your highlights, because they're the ones you want to shine brightest, because that's where the growth is going to take place. So yeah. I think we'll repackage it and call them highlights.
There we go. I like it. So hope you guys will join us moving forward here. We're going to be meeting every week. So hope to see you guys, and just give us a shout if you want to be a part of this. All right.
Good stuff. All right, gentlemen.
Thanks for sharing. Cheers.
Very much. See you, Keith.